company for just over $300 million to Compaq. And I bring this up not because it was the largest internet company acquisition at the time, but because he's done so much stuff since then that nobody even remembers this, this initial success.
True, Zip2 doesn't get much play.
So I'm going to ask him some questions. We're going to go through. He's got, you know, as Jane said, 3 mind-blowing companies. And then hopefully we'll have some time for you all to ask him some questions. So start thinking, and we'll get to those. So I'm going to put up something that probably looks familiar to most people here. This is the homepage of PayPal in 2000. Elon was a co-founder, and the company was sold to eBay in 2002 for $1.5 billion. And we all know what PayPal is today, but I was hoping you could sort of share with us kind of what your vision was from the beginning.
Well, it certainly evolved over time. Initially, after selling Zip2, I wanted to do something more on the internet, and it seemed to me that there hadn't been all that much innovation in the financial sector. And given that money is kind of just an entry in a database, and it was low bandwidth, so it didn't require some big infrastructural upgrade to the internet, it seemed it should lend itself to innovation. So I tried to think of what could be, what was something compelling that could be done. And I thought, well, if we can combine all types of financial services in one, so you could have like mortgages, like basically all your entire financial relationship seamlessly integrated together in one place online, that would be cool. And then there was a little feature that just seemed like an obvious feature, which was the ability to transfer money from one person to another by entering a unique identifier like an email address. That was like just a sort of a little feature, but then whenever we demonstrate the product, people wouldn't get excited about the consolidated financial services, but they would get excited about emailing money. So we started focusing our energy on that, and that really ended up being the big driver of growth.
Right. So it sort of went from a super bank, I think that's what the media called it at the
yeah,
time.
like a super financial services thing.
Yeah.
To really narrowly focusing on email payments.
But
although I should point out that actually a lot of people aren't aware that a lot of the success of PayPal is due to the underlying financial services that are there, such as the money market fund, which is one of the highest yielding, in fact, I think the highest yielding in the country, and the fact that there's a PayPal debit card, which operates off the MasterCard system, so you can buy things, buy things in the real world, and get cash from an ATM that directly taps into your PayPal account. Those are actually very important to the PayPal business model.
Right. So you were CEO of the company for most of 2000, I think, and you went...
And 99, yeah.
And 99.
So like 2 years, basically.
PayPal merged, Elon's company merged with another company.
Cook, yeah.
It became PayPal.
Right.
He was running the company. He went on an investment raising trip, and when he got back, what happened?
Well, yeah, so... I think it's not a good idea to leave the office when there are like a lot of major things underway which are causing people a great deal of stress.
Yeah.
But it was a combination of needing to raise money, and I'd gotten married earlier that year and not had any vacation or honeymoon or anything, so it was kind of a combined financing trip / honeymoon.
Yeah.
And anyway, away for 2 weeks, and there was just so much. There was just a lot of worry, and that caused the management team to decide that I wasn't the right guy to run the company, and so the board was like, geez, what do we do? So basically, I could have fought it really hard, but instead I said, rather than fight it at this critical time, best to sort of concede.
It's amazing to me how you managed, when I first asked you about this, you said you buried their hatchet. And basically the person who replaced you just put, I think, $20 million or so into your company. And how did you get past that kind of betrayal? I mean, how did you guys patch it up?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting story. Well, while I didn't agree with their conclusion, I understood why they took the action they did. And they're not, Peter and Max and David and the other guys, they're smart people with generally the right motivations. They did what they thought was right, and I think for the right reasons. I mean, except that the reasons weren't valid, in my opinion. But it's hard to argue with the ultimate outcome, which was positive. So,
Right.
you know, I just thought, you know, it's just easy to be better and have and just hate them forever. But you know, it's best the right better course of action is to turn the other cheek and sort of you know make the relationship good, and it was. You know, but I put a lot of effort into sort of making things good, and and then actually recently the Founders Fund, which is comprised primarily of ex-PayPal people, including Peter, who replaced me as CEO, invested in SpaceX.
Yeah.
And I invested in Peter's things before
Right.
that.
So I want to put up something about what this you know, PayPal sale to eBay helped make possible. Tell us what we're looking at.
That's the Tesla Roadster, which is the world's first production electric sports car.
And how much does it cost? How fast does
Sure.
it? Give us the sales pitch.
Okay.
They just opened a dealership, so he should be good at this.
Actually, I've sold a lot of cars. So the Tesla Roadster is the nutshell. You know, the elevator speech thing is that the Roadster is faster than a Ferrari and more efficient than a Prius. So it actually has better acceleration than any Ferrari except the Enzo, and it's about 3.9 seconds 0 to 60. And that actually understates the true acceleration because 0 to 60 for a gasoline car is measured from when the wheels start moving, but the wheels only start moving when you engage the clutch, and it typically takes about a quarter second or more to engage the clutch. But there's no clutch for our car. It's direct drive, so you don't have a clutch engagement delay. So it's like a gasoline car with a 0 to 60 of about 3.6 seconds. And it's good, incredibly good handling. And then the energy efficiency of the car is probably the most amazing thing. It only costs $4 at current California rates to go about 250 miles. So the range, the current EPA rated range, which is a combination of highway and city with the air conditioning on, is 244 miles.
So it's amazing. So this is, I mean, it's so cool. It costs $109,000 if anybody's interested.
It's expensive, but it's comparable to like a Porsche 911.
Right.
You know, so we wanted to have something which was in the price range of a comparable gasoline car that it could, you know, probably beat. You know, so that's key because, you know, it's one thing to have a compelling product, but it has to be a compelling product at a compelling price.
Right. You, in the press, obviously, this has gotten a lot of attention, and Elon's taken a lot of flack for various redesigns. You've been portrayed as a micromanager, you know, redesigning the headlights or whatever.
I thought it was a nano manager. I've improved several orders of magnitude.
So, why does the car need to be perfect? I mean, why did you need to redesign, you know, the doors, for instance?
Well, first of all, the car is definitely not perfect.
Okay.
In fact, one of the things that troubles me personally is like when I see a product, I can immediately see a readout of all the flaws.
Yeah.
I need to reprogram myself or remind myself to like look at the good things as well. So it's certainly far from perfect, but the acceptance. I mean, fundamentally, if you don't have a compelling product at a compelling price, you don't have a great company. And that was really the gate that the car had to pass through. And so there were things like the door sills, because we used a chassis that was inherited from Lotus Elise. In retrospect, we should have completely redesigned the car and not use any Elise componentry, because we really. It's sort of like you go into a house and you think you'll just change this or that and it'll be all okay, and then you end up changing everything in the house. It would have been better to just level the house and start and do something new, because our car is 30% heavier. The load points are all different, so we had to really redesign the chassis. And one of the things I said we've got to do is to lower the door sills, And as it is, our dorsals are still too high. But if I'd say, imagine if they're 2 inches higher, because that's what they were. It made it almost unusable in my view.
Yeah, I mean, what Elon, I think you were quoted saying something like DeLorean failed because they built a bad car, and, and you need to, the car needs to be worth $109,000 to
absolutely,
make it work.
absolutely, exactly. If you don't, exactly, we did not want to create another DeLorean, and the DeLorean kind of looked kind of cool, but it was really weak on performance.
Yeah.
It was unreliable, and there were lots of little issues with the car, and we just didn't want to be in that situation. And it's not like, I mean, we could have built a worse car and still sold a bunch of them, but if you don't sell enough to make the business look attractive to future investors, you're not going to attract the capital to take it to the next level, or even to sustain where it is.
How many orders have you taken? So
1,200 deposits.
Wow.
So we only take orders when somebody puts down a deposit of at least $5,000.
Yeah. So I'm going to move to another company, but you told me that the last successful car startup was Jeep in 1941.
Yeah, in the U.S., yeah.
In the U.S. So doesn't that kind of say something bad about going into the car business? I mean, why go for this?
Well, certainly I would not have done this if it were a gasoline car. So this is not about, it's not because I thought the world had a shortage of sports cars that we started Tesla. It's because it's very important that we accelerate the transition away from gasoline, for environmental reasons, for economic reasons, for national security reasons. It's very, very fundamental. And frankly, even if you don't believe in the environmental reasons, even if you don't believe in the national security reasons, it's obviously gasoline, oil is not a renewable resource. And sooner or later, the economic issues are going to cause a collapse of the economy, literally a collapse of the economy if we don't find an alternative, because you'll be paying $20, $30, $40 for gasoline, and the stuff's going to get, it's going to start approaching the price of gold. I mean, it's going to be crazy. So we got to find a renewable alternative, and the good that Tesla is doing is not just Tesla's what Tesla is itself. It's the example that Tesla sets for the rest of the industry. In fact, people have probably seen the announcement for the Chevy Volt. Well, Bob Lutz is the champion of the Chevy Volt, and he credits Tesla with starting getting the Chevy Volt started, because when we unveiled our Tesla Roadster a couple years ago, and he saw the press release, he took the Tesla press release, went to his development guys and said, if a little company in California can do this, why can't we?
Yeah.
And that's what prompted the Chevy Volt.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how we power these things. That's a picture of the workshop or just south of San Francisco, right? And then this is another company that Elon, this is probably the one that you're maybe least involved with on a day-to-day basis, but it's Solar City. And sort of the elevator pitch for this one is, as you've told it to me before, is you're going to do for solar power what Dell did for computers, which I think is such a nice way of putting it. And I was hoping you could just unpack that for us a little bit.
Certainly. Well, Dell doesn't make the CPU or the hard drive or the memory, but they put it all together, and they manage the relationship with the end customer, and they manage the service and all that. And that's a very important element, because if you had to go to Intel and buy your CPU and somewhere else and buy your hard drive and put that all together, very few people would have computers.
Yeah.
So Solar City is about packaging that all, making it really easy to use, or just basically make one call, it's just seamless and painless. And then they also have a lot of innovation on the financing front. So they did a $300 million debt facility with Morgan Stanley that allows the end consumer to sign up for solar power, put no money down, and your utility bill decreases. So it's a complete no-brainer. Now it doesn't work for every house, because your house has to be, south-facing, have a south-facing roof and be of sufficient size, and you have to be in an area where electricity is not super cheap.
Yeah.
But it works for a lot of houses, and maybe probably a third of the houses in California, something like that. And so they've just enjoyed phenomenal growth. I mean, they're literally growing as fast as they can hire good people. I mean, the numbers for the month of August came in, and Solar City is as big as the next 5 solar power providers combined in California. So, and all credit to them. I mean, really, it's a phenomenal job. I mean, I was sort of weigh in every now and again, like, yeah, how about this, or how about that? But really, I deserve very little credit for
No
SolarCity.
nano managing there.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
So Jane brought up Mars in her introduction, and you know, you got out of PayPal and Zip2, with a lot of money, and I'm sure people in this room have had this happen to them, and many people will have it happen sometime in the future, I hope. And instead of buying mutual funds or, I don't know, doing what everyone does with several $100 million, you decided to...
Mortgage-backed securities, I hear they're great.
You decided to start a rocket company with the express purpose of, well, making it cheaper to get stuff in outer space and then eventually going to Mars, or helping humanity go to Mars. And I just wanted to know, why? Why do that?
It isn't obvious? Well, when I was in college, there were sort of three areas that I thought of what's really going to affect the future of humanity in a significant way. And the three things that seemed to be most significant to me were the internet, the transition to a sustainable energy economy, and the third was the extension of life beyond Earth, becoming multiplanetary. I didn't think I'd be involved at all in option three, but the reason I think it's important is it goes to how we decide that anything is important. And the lens of history is a good way to distinguish what seems important in the moment from what is truly important over the long term. And if you zoom out and look at a long enough period of time, and say the 4 billion year history of Earth, and the evolution of life itself, then there's only about half a dozen or so major milestones in the history of life. There's obviously single-celled life, multicellular life, differentiation to plants and animals, the transition from oceans to land, mammals, consciousness, and then also on that scale would fit life becoming multiplanetary. It would be, I think, at least as important as life going from the oceans to land, and probably more important or more significant, because at least that was a gradual transition. If things got a little uncomfortable on land, you could just hop back in the ocean, and that's not really feasible on interplanetary journeys. So, here we are. It's sort of the first time in the 4 billion year history of Earth that life has been able to go beyond Earth, and that window may be open for a long time, and I'm optimistic that I hope it will, and I'm actually fairly optimistic about the future of Earth. But something may happen that closes that window and prevents life from extending beyond Earth, and that risks the extension of life, or at least consciousness as we know it, and that would be a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Life is a terrible thing to waste.
So I want to give people a sense of what kind of we're talking about. So we just have a short, this is, building the rocket, and this should give people a sense of So that's your rocket, and that launched.
Yeah.
that launched. What, about three weeks ago or 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And we'll get to what happened, but I just want to ask you. I mean, watching that, and when you watched that for the first time, your first rocket went in 2005, I believe, or
Right.
I mean, how did you feel when
$100
$100 million, years of work, and you're shooting something in the air? I mean, it must have been amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty nerve-wracking, that's for sure. The pucker factor on launch day is very high. So no, yeah. I mean, I'm actually, should be said, I'm actually kind of like a physics guy. I mean, I'm like an engineer, really, and I do kind of the business stuff because, you kind of have to do the business stuff, or if you don't do the business stuff, somebody else is going to do it for you, and then then you could be in trouble. I'm actually the chief designer of the rocket. I mean, I could tell you, I could redraw that rocket without the benefit of blueprints for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like seeing my baby go up there, and it's pretty scary.
Yeah. So there have been 3 flights so far, and each one has obviously the goal is to get into orbit. Each one has sort of not made it. How did you deal with the?
Well, we got to space.
Okay, you got to space, but it
Yeah.
didn't.
Well,
You didn't get where you wanted to go.
Not all the way.
Sorry.
Well,
So,
you didn't necessarily go all the way on the first few dates.
SpaceX has.
Got to work your way up there. But certainly flights 2 and 3 got to well beyond the boundaries of space. Didn't get to full orbital velocity though.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got SpaceX has several hundred employees, and obviously you said it was like your baby. I mean, how did you deal with it personally, and then how did you deal with the company as a manager, sort of helping them get past it and helping your customers get past it, obviously, to keep their money, because nobody's taken their money out of
Right.
SpaceX. They've sold 12 flights and none of the customers have asked for their money back.
That's true.
So how did you do that?
Lots of therapy, lots of hand-holding. It was just, I think the customers that have signed up for SpaceX are pretty sophisticated. They understand that in the early attempts at flight, in the development phase, essentially, called the beta phase, if it was software, there will be crashes, and things won't initially go 100%. They obviously do expect that once we get out of the development phase, that there will be good reliability, and that really is a function of eliminating design-related issues.
Yeah.
The last launch had a problem because we had a brand new engine on it that had a thrust transient that was longer than the last one, and so there was an issue following stage separation.
Right.
But generally, they're quite sophisticated customers, and they understand what's going on. And actually, the first 3 flights were paid for by, well, the first 2 were paid for by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, and the third one was paid for by the Air Force Operation Responsive Space Office. And the outcomes they were looking for were not really the delivery of a satellite to orbit. They were actually looking for demonstration of rapid launch.
Right.
And
Which
so
you
they
showed
actually
them.
felt that we were fully paid for 3 flights.
Right. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll have some time for a quick Q&A. There's another rocket that looks just like this right now in the Marshall Islands, where SpaceX launches from, and I think you told me it's going to go on
This
on
coming week,
Tuesday,
hopefully.
or hopefully this
Yeah.
week. And you told me, and I think you've written this elsewhere, that starting a rocket company it's so risky. It's like playing Russian roulette. And
Well, each launch is a bit like Russian roulette, yeah.
okay, and
But Russian roulette, it's worth pointing out that you're probably going to win.
but I wanted to ask you, Russian roulette, how do you know that you're dead? I mean, when do you stop? When do you say, you know what, I'm not going to make it? Or how do you know?
I think if we run out of money. But we actually, I know this sounds crazy, but we were profitable last year. We're going to be profitable this year. I'm not a big profit, it's a fairly small profit. And we have enough funding on hand and with existing contracts that are independent of Falcon 1 to last through the end of next year.
Okay. So I was just told, I guess we don't have time for questions, and I'll let that be my last question.
Okay.
But Elon, thank you so much for being here and just sharing your story with us. It's so inspiring, and thank you.
Thank you.